Hey there, welcome to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast, where each week we're learning career-defining advice, powerful social media strategies, unique creative tips, groundbreaking influencer marketing tactics, and more from marketing experts that represent some of the world's leading brands. Let's dive in. Grab a drink and join your hosts, Cassie and Erica, for this week's episode. Hey, it's Cassie. In preparation for today's interview, I'm going to break down what public relations is and a few of the traditional and modern tactics that brands are utilizing for their promotional efforts. According to the PRSA website, public relations is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. Traditional PR tactics are diverse and include things like event coordination, crisis communications, reputation management, press release distribution, media relations, and many more. In more recent days, PR has taken a digital turn with the added benefit of impacting SEO and link building. In the world of digital PR, professionals are focusing on relationships with bloggers or influencers in order to increase a brand's authority and build awareness. While traditional and new age digital PR are both used simultaneously today, it's important to first evaluate your business objectives to determine which tactics would be best to utilize in your campaign.
This episode is truly special. Cassie and I had an amazing conversation with Alice Hampton, founder of full-service celebrity talent agency ACP Management. She talks about the journey from full-time corporate VP to launching her own agency and all of the nuances that come with that, as well as her best advice for those looking to venture into the world of PR. Alice has worked with some of the world's most sought-after talent, including Rosie Huntington-Whiteley and Hailey Bieber, and has overseen the global communication strategies for bareMinerals, Estée Lauder, Ford Clinique, and more. Her qualifications are plentiful, and yet she's beyond humble. In fact, she'll reveal that her number one secret to success is developing real relationships and truly listening to people. Grab a pen and paper, a glass of your favorite beverage, and cheers to a wonderful episode with the fabulous Alice Hampton. Enjoy.
Hey, Alice, how are you?
Hi, guys. I'm good. How are you?
Good. It is so wonderful to have you on this podcast. I had the pleasure of actually meeting you in person a few months ago at a Beekman 1802 event, which was so wonderful. And you shared a lot of your story and everything you've been up to recently. So we had the idea of having you on the podcast to kind of share that with our listeners as well. So we're so excited to have you today. But one question that we always start with all of our speakers that we have on the podcast is, what is in your glass? Because it is marketing happy hour after all.
Well, I'm glad you asked. I have a glass of Cab Sav, and Napa Cab Sav. It's my kind of go-to. And, I think at the end of the day, there's nothing better than sitting down with your husband or your friend or whoever it might be and just unwinding from the day, sharing your day. So I'm a big Napa red, big full-bodied Cab Sav lover. I think this is an aperture I've got ready to go. So that's what I'm drinking. I'm not sure what you're drinking.
I actually have a glass of hot tea. It has been surprisingly cold in Florida, so I'm trying to warm up a little bit. But yeah, how about you, Erica?
Unsurprisingly, everyone who listens to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast probably knows about me because I have one in every episode. It's an Onda, so it's a sparkling tequila beverage from Shay Mitchell, which
Shay, she's great.
Yeah, she's amazing. And so I literally drink this like all the time.
I love it. I love it. We're bi-coastal here, having a happy hour together.
Yes, that's amazing. Alice, can you start by just telling us how you got into the world of PR and what did that journey early on look like for you?
Right, of course. So, I'm Australian. You can probably hear my accent. I grew up in Sydney and I went to university there. And honestly, I actually went into university wanting to be a journalist. So I majored in journalism and PR and sub-majored in psychology. And I remember very vividly, I was in a lecture room and my lecturer came in and it was back in the day of like this, it's called a cold call, when you knock on someone's door and you're a reporter and you're like, how do you feel your child was in an accident? And I thought, oh my gosh, that is the worst thing to ever do to someone. I would never want to do that. So I just started moving more into the world of PR, which was all very positive, how to, get brands out of crisis. And I just, honestly, I fell into that and I loved it. And I'm so glad that that very pivotal moment happened, because it really, I think you have to, with any career or with any relationship or with any decision you make in life, you really want to do a gut check. Does it feel right for me as a person? Because if it doesn't, then don't do it. So I'm really, really big on how things make me feel. And that was just the pivotal moment, how I fell into PR. Then I worked at De Beers Diamonds. I worked in various PR agencies. And then I just kept kind of growing and going to the next company. And then I was at Estée Lauder, and then they moved me to New York. And then I was in, so that's basically how it started. So a very backwards way, because originally I wanted to be a journalist.
That's amazing. And as you were working through your career and collaborating with brands like UGG Australia and Clinique and Estée Lauder, what skills did you feel were crucial for you to develop in order to be successful in that field?
So I think, again, I think it doesn't matter what your title is or what your profession is. I think being a people person, number one, and being a problem solver, right? You are always going to run into issues and conflicts and big decisions and decisions you have to make in very high stress situations. And there's a lot on the line. And I think if you can always have that human element and put the people first, and also just try and understand why, okay, we're in a boardroom where there's a huge conflict, there's an issue, or there's some crisis happening in Japan, or there's whatever it might be, understanding the psychology behind the problem before reacting, I think is such a key skill to have. And I don't know if that was my psychology background or just being someone who just loves people, loves understanding people, loves getting inside people's minds and why people do various things. That absolutely, number one, would be probably my best skill. And just being someone who listens to people, really listens, like give people the attention. I think even all my girls will tell you now, I think they all think that, they're my only client. And that's how I want them to feel. And that's how it should feel, because I give them my 100% focus. Doesn't mean in the back of my mind, there might be 1,000 things I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this X, Y, and Z. But, how you make people feel, I think it just, that's such a key advantage in business in so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful point. And you mentioned how you have a few different clients at this point on your own. Did you always picture yourself starting your own firm? What did that process of moving away from corporate and into your own venture look like?
Okay, so great question, because 100% not. I was never ever going to have my own company. It was something that had been brought to me time and time again. And I'm such a corporate girl through and through, 25 years in corporate. My last role, I was vice president of bareMinerals and Shiseido Makeup, and living in New York and running global, and absolutely loved it. And then what kind of happened, it was kind of a culmination of personal and business kind of converging at the same time. My husband we've been trying to have children. We did 7 rounds of IVF. We unfortunately kept miscarrying our children, and I was on a plane every second week, and I loved what I did. I didn't want to give it up, but I knew something also had to give. And I'd been headhunted my whole life. I was very lucky to have a very blessed career, and I just kept saying yes to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I'd never gone for a job. And it just got to a point where I was in New York. I was traveling constantly. I had 2 offices. I had 2 teams. I had 2 different brand strategies, big, multi-billion-dollar brands, and doing the communications for them. And I loved it. But it also was a point where there just had to be a give. And I just went, you know what? I need to take a step back. I need to take 6 months off for me. And I also, on boring reasons, but I had to get my green card. I had to do those things where I couldn't travel out of the country for 6 months, which was unheard of in my job. I just was always traveling. So I took a step back. I gave 3 months notice. I think I changed my leaving time 3 times because I couldn't bear to leave. And I loved my president, Jill, and I loved my teams. I loved the brands, and then I did that. And then of course, COVID hit. So then it was something like, okay, I'm ready to get back into corporate. And there was something happening. It was I couldn't talk about it because, it wasn't announced yet what was happening. But then things kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And so my girlfriend, Anina Bing, I'm wearing one of her jackets. I wear something of hers every day. beautiful girlfriend of mine. And, she just said, look, in the meantime, would you just mind doing some of my personal deals? I've worked with a lot of talent over the years, and I've done 100,000 different deals. Usually I'd be on the brand side, bringing, the brand to the talent. And then it literally flipped overnight. Suddenly I'm like, it just took off. And I have all these incredible women. I keep my team extremely small. I never want to be an IMG or a CAA. I think they're amazing at what they do, but I couldn't have 50 or 60 girls on my roster I had to look after, because I'm so hands-on. I'm there, everything. Like I just couldn't do it any other way. I'm so in on the detail. I'm agent, manager, therapist, publicist, all of the things. So I have a small group of incredible women I'm so blessed I get to work with every day. And that's how it started. And Nina just asked me, and it was never meant to go where it has. And I'm so glad and grateful it has, because I love what I do every day. I get up, I love my job. But no, I did not mean to do this, if that answers your question.
That's amazing. You can hear the passion in your voice, which is just incredible. I love that. I love that.
Well, I'm very lucky. I don't take it for granted. I take my job and my role extremely seriously, and the trust that my girls have put in me. I say girls, it just happens to be they're all incredible women, nothing against men, but I take it very seriously. And I think a lot of I have this big maternal instinct, right? And like I said, we tried to have children, it didn't happen, and we're okay with that now. But I feel like my girls are my babies. I will protect them like a mama cub and mama bear and their cubs. And so, and I think that's the difference. It's not just a transaction. It's not just a business thing. I want to have relationships with these people, with these brands. At the end of the day, you get so much more, out of something when you bring honey to a bee, or it's just, I don't know. I think there's a way to do business. You don't have to be ruthless and cutthroat. I can be tough and I'm strong, and I'm not at all afraid to stand up for my girls and what they need. And absolutely, but there's a way to do it. And I think being in corporate for so long, I saw the best of people and I saw the worst of people. And you learn from both of those experiences.
Yeah, I love hearing that story. And I remember you shared it a few months ago, and it was just so inspiring and so cool to see how things that you would never expect to happen just come out of thin air, essentially. But what an awesome story. With everything that you did in the corporate side, what skills did you obtain on that corporate side that helped you kind of be successful on your own in what you're doing now?
That's a really great question. Obviously you want to be someone who's hungry to learn and eager to learn. I'm not a finance expert, but some of my favorite meetings were the huge budget planning. These meetings would go on for a week, and you're in there and you are deep diving and you into the different market nuances and different strategies and how to run a P&L. And honestly, just being a sponge and absorbing and learning, I loved learning. And I would often look at my job and the positions that I was in and the rooms I was allowed to enter and the people I was allowed to interact with, and think how incredible. I get paid to learn from the best in the business. Like, this is incredible. It's such an honor. It wasn't like, oh no, here we go, another 3-day meeting. Like, how boring. No, I'm so excited. Okay, maybe this, because when you're in the leadership team, you get brought into a whole lot of different areas of the business that's not necessarily your one niche. But I would just, I don't know, I think I was always extremely grateful. I came from nothing. Nothing was ever handed to me. I was from a town of 5,000 people in, rural New South Wales. My dad was a farmer. It was, to me, like going from a town of 5,000 to being in New York and traveling the globe everything was always exciting. So I think I've just always had that, so grateful, so honored. And, I don't want to let anyone down. So I will, show up even more than what, they're expecting, just because I'm just so grateful to have a seat at the table and have my ideas. Maybe they agree with them, maybe they don't agree with them. But I don't know. I think just being interested and giving people the respect and learning and fostering relationships. At the end of the day, it's all about how we connect, whether it's business, relationship, personal, whatever it might be, but nothing happens without humans connecting. And so if you can figure out a way to make that happen with as little animosity and drama as possible, then I'm here for it.
I want to hear a little bit with all of this passion that you have for your career and all of these girls that you love interacting with and helping. what do you feel about work-life balance? I feel like that's just a term that's always thrown around, but I just love to hear from someone who's so passionate about their career that you're probably working long hours. How do you make that work?
That's a really great question. I think it's a different work-life balance now than what it was in corporate. Corporate, I remember my gorgeous assistant, Kelly, I don't know if Kelly's listening, but she was always so fabulous. She would run my schedule, run my calendar, because, I had, sometimes when you're on one brand, there's a lot of general, recurring meetings that would happen that you can kind of maneuver around and you can always be at. But when you've got two different brands who, they're trying to get on my calendar, and she would manage my calendar, and, I'd get in, she'd hand me my coffee, she'd fill my water. I'd be like, where am I now? She'd write, boardroom here, you're going in here, you're going to talk to these people about this. Okay, got it. Okay, where are we going now? She would run it, and so seamlessly, and I adore her. I miss her a lot. But at the end of the day, at 6 o'clock at night, I'd get back to my office, and then the day would start. So, and then, then you're working till, whatever time, and that's fine. I've never been shy for hard work. I like to take maybe a Saturday off, and then by Sunday, I really am that kind of person where I want to feel I'm prepared for the week ahead. I want to list out what my, objectives are for the week ahead, and what I need to follow up, what do I need to close, what I need to finish, whatever I need to do. So I always, and my husband's the same, we both love working. So usually on a Sunday, there'll be at least a good 3 hours of the day somewhere, maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening. We'll both kind of step aside and get some work done. But honestly, that's more just for my own, so I can sleep that night and not wake up stressed. Now, having your own business, it's different. But it's also, there's a lot of positives. Here's one thing I will not compromise on. Unless I've got a really early morning flight, like I did this morning, I had to fly back from Phoenix, I don't put an alarm on. That's my number one rule. I've done it for 25 years in corporate and traveling and always being jet lagged, but I allow myself to sleep. And sleep is honestly probably the number one luxury I think we can all give ourselves. And so that is a blessing. And I'm lucky I get to do my calendar, and if I do want to take the dog out quickly for a walk, I can do that. But then also my work goes into the evenings and weekends, and that's fine. Here's the thing, what do they say? Do something you love, you never work a day in your life, right? So I'm really lucky I get to do something 99% of the time I love it. Of course, you have stressful days like anyone, but I think work-life balance, I'm at a position in my career, I'm lucky I get to choose who I bring on, how much work I want to do. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is people need to feel empowered that they don't like something, you can move, right? You can leave. You don't have to stay. No one's forced to do anything. So, I'm talking to a degree, right? There's, circumstances and people have responsibilities. I understand that. But at the end of the day, if I was so miserable, or if I hated what I did, then, okay, the onus is on me to figure it out. And I think we have to build a life that we want to love living. That's what I do.
I love that. And you mentioned sleep, which in my opinion is a major productivity hack for myself, because if I do not sleep, I am not productive. And I know there's a lot of business owners that are listening to this podcast, but besides sleep and making sure to prioritize that, do you have any productivity hacks? Do you calendar batch? What are some things that you like to work into your schedule?
Okay. So funny, we should talk about sleep again. Now you're going to think all I do is sleep. I think Ariana Huffington is one, Churchill was one. I'm a big believer in the 10-minute power nap. So, and this is probably a little dirty secret, I used to do this when I was in corporate. Whether I was at Estée Lauder or at Shiseido, and my brain was so overwhelmed and I just knew I can put another good 8 hours in. I don't care if it's, 3 in the afternoon, I can do it again. I need to just have 15 minutes where I lay down, whether it was in my office, I'd shut the door and lay on the couch in New York, or, whether it's here and I'm working from home and it's much easier. But then give me that, it's like a whole new day. And they say a 10-minute power nap is like, 4 hours of sleep or something. Like, I can literally feel like I've got a whole new day ahead and I can keep going. I feel like the day started again. So that's probably my number one, I guess, secret. Although all it sounds like I do is sleep, which I promise you I don't.
No, it's okay. It's so important. And it's funny because I was at a conference last week and we probably spent 2 hours talking about the importance of sleep. And one book they recommended was called Why We Sleep. I'm not sure who wrote it, But if you all haven't read it, definitely recommend. It talks about the science behind, the brain and how it affects everything, but it's so important. So I think you can talk about it all you want because it definitely affects everything. Yeah.
It's such, honestly, I'm such a big advocate for those companies that have sleep pods, and I would dream of that. But, like I said, when you're in corporate, I'd have to just run up to the sick bay and go, I just need to lay down, but just shut the door. Or if I had my own office, it was easier. But it is a game changer and in business. And honestly, you feel like I've just got a whole new week to start again, like a whole new day. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it. But not everyone can do it. I know my poor husband, he tries, but he can't.
Absolutely. So you've talked about your girls a little bit, and I can only imagine the amount of brands that approach you for different collaborations and campaigns. But what does the brand vetting process look like for you when you are considering partnerships for your talent?
Right. Well, I guess number one, each of my girls, they're a brand themselves, right? So what do they stand for? So if a brand comes to me, number one, does it make sense for there to be an alignment? There has to, because the consumer's too smart, right? It can't just be a money grab. Yes, sometimes there might be things you have to, push the needle a little bit and do something they might want maybe a little out of the norm of what you usually would, but that's compromise, and that's fine. Flexibility is important in business. But if it's just a brand that's just not authentic to them, like there's just no point, like don't do it. And I remember saying this to, one of my girls, Cassie, who you met at the Beekman event. Like I remember in the very beginning, I said, you have to trust me that it's okay to walk away. Like we can walk away. And in the beginning, you're like, yeah, but that's my rent, or and it's nerve wracking, but I said, just trust me. You've got to trust me that I'm going to make sure you are looked after and that it's going to be better in the long run, but you just can't say yes to everything. Also, you dilute your value, number one, and you dilute your brand equity. So I think that would be the first thing. And also, obviously, doing due diligence that this brand hasn't been brought into disrepute in any way. So, you can do a pretty quick Google search on, news stories. Generally, most brands you kind of relatively known if they're a safe brand or not. But if there was a brand that there was any conflict of interest, or they had some shady dealings in the past, or there was any issues with whatever it might be, it's just not worth it. Because what happens is when you merge a brand with a talent, you're transferring that brand equity of the talent and also the equity of the talent onto the brand. So it becomes one, right? So you see it all the time. A big celebrity will sign with X brand, then something disaster will happen, some scandal, and then bang, bang, the brand cancels the contract or the talent walks away because they can't be associated. So there's a lot of risk involved. So doing, I guess, risk mitigation and just, doing your due diligence, you have to do the homework or else, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any advice for brands that are looking to pitch to influencers and celebrities that are similar to the caliber of influencers and celebrities that you work with?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is get their name right. I mean, it sounds so crazy. I mean, maybe it's my journalist background, but you spell the name wrong or you get their name wrong. I'm like, do you even know who you're actually reaching out about? Like, be a professional, right? I'm such a stickler and I take my job so responsibly that I represent these girls when I represent brands, not that I was the face of the brand, I wasn't the model, but I would speak on behalf of the brand, or I'd meet with press or influencers or, other brand partners. And so be professional, right? Be warm, don't be rude. And just be respectful. Like, these people, this is their job, this is their time. No, do they want to do all this stuff for free just because you want it? Maybe not. And so just working with someone, I think it's honestly just human 101. Like, it really isn't that hard. But also, obviously, understanding what's the rationale, what's the intent out of this. Are you looking for an upper funnel awareness play? Are you looking for lower funnel conversion? Like, what is the goal? Because then let's work backwards on how to build out a campaign or develop assets or whatever it might be. Because, and it's funny actually, I will actually, because I have a lot of brand experience in the, I will actually jump in and say, no, guys, no, you shouldn't do this. You should do this. Like, and it kind of becomes comical because they're like, wait, you're just meant to be the agent. I'm like, well, yes, and you don't have to listen to me at all, but this is what I would do if I were you. And guess what? I've done this before. I ran, global markets who did this. So, and then they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. So I think, being flexible, working with people, but number one, be polite, know your stuff. Like, if you want us to do our due diligence and learn and download and brief and understand your brand and your brand values and what pillars make your brand, the point of difference and the success and all of that kind of thing, then they should have the same respect and do it for the talent.
Absolutely. That's it seems like going back to basics there,
right.
But very good advice. I have been on the brand side of things and have even had the brand's name spelled wrong when influencers are pitching, which is just incredible. I think it's so wild how things can be.
And it seems so silly. I literally got an email just then. I won't say who or what, but it was for a friend, and they're like, I'm representing this big celebrity. I won't say who. And they spelt her name wrong. And I went, wow, like, that's just such a shame. Like, you can't even spell her name. Like, it really isn't that hard to do a quick spell check, and of course we're all on iPhone and, texting on the run, or, things happen, but you got to get the name right. I don't know. It's just one of my things. Please just get their name right.
Absolutely. That's definitely a very good piece of advice. Just a follow up there, do you have any specific protection requirements in place to ensure the privacy of your clients? And what does that look like when you're working with a brand?
Yeah. So, I mean, generally all my girls, all of their correspondence, like if anyone were to want to reach out to them, apart from DMs, right? We're in the world of social media and I'm not talking about that, or, comments and things like that. But any brand deals come directly to me. So whether their email marketing link, it's always comes to me. So I always find it quite funny because it clearly says Alice at ACP Management, but a lot of them are like, hi Kat, hi Anina, hi Nikki, hi, whatever it might be. So, and that's just really good because I can very quickly decipher who's serious, who's not, who just wants a marriage proposal, who wants to invite who to a wedding. Like, it's just, there's a lot that you see, trust me, you see a lot on this side. So, from that sense, obviously any cell numbers given out is always mine. Like, I will patch, we're doing press interviews, unless it's a Zoom, I will patch my client in. I'm very, very particular about, and obviously having PO boxes, no personal addresses, obviously putting in security cameras and all of that kind of thing when the fans start getting a little crazy and a little too close, and obviously over the years I've worked with some huge stars, so obviously working with their security teams and their publicists and just ensuring seamless entry to hotels, back entrances, like whatever it might be, like making sure that when we fly to Japan, all their clothes are ready and set up, and like just the rooms they fly in, like the protocol, there's scanning properties before we go in. I mean, I've been to things where Secret Service has gone into a restaurant, cleared the restaurant, then we all come in and sit down, and I've seen it from every extreme. But also, like, even being out, like at dinners, sometimes you see, and we love the fans. It's always so, number one, I say you have to be gracious, and the fans are what made you, generally in the world I'm working in now. So, always giving back, having photos with them, obviously if it's COVID safe and all that, but sometimes you see some getting a little too close, and then you just sweep in, get out, and okay, we're moving along now, thank you so much, and that's it. You just control it like I would control a press interview if we're doing press and sitting down. Like, there's been times where I'm like, I'm sorry, we're not answering that question, but let's move on to the next one. There's a nice way to do it. So yeah, you just have your eyes open and just make sure that your girls are safe and well and happy, and that's the main thing.
Do you have any favorite collaborations or campaigns you've worked on, whether on the brand side or with your clients?
You know what? It's a little bit of a cop-out to say. It really comes down to the people you work with. I mean, obviously the brands and making sure the brand and the talent fit is in alignment, and 1 + 1 = 3, and the brand and the talent and everyone's just so crazy happy with the results. Absolutely. But it really comes down to the partnerships, I think, the relationships you build on the way, the people you meet. At the end of the day, we all work hard. Like, let's have fun while we do it, and let's do great things. I mean, I do remember on the corporate side, it was bareMinerals. I was vice president of bareMinerals, and we were launching, it was called A Power of Good. It was like the, charity initiative of the brand. And we had a huge event in London. We took over Soho Farmhouse, and Rosie Huntington-Whiteley was there, and Hailey Bieber came, and then her husband Justin came, and there was people from 130 markets around the world were flying in, and it was such a beautiful experience. So I'm just thinking of one event in my life that I ran, and it was such a beautiful event. And just because at the end of the day, it wasn't about spruik this product or post about this. It was such a, I don't know, it was just such a classy thing for a brand to do. And of course, it was just made so magical because all these people came in, and it was a pretty special moment for the guests, and a lot of amazing things happened. But being a part of those special moments, that I think that was just a really, really amazing moment. And my husband came as well, and he loved it. He's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because he deals with lawyers every day. So for him, he was like, wow, this is crazy. So I think probably, yeah, maybe that just when I think there's a deeper meaning, like there was a purpose, there was something, it was just so philanthropic and such a positive experience all around. And it wasn't just a quick, let's get column inches or let's get social media posts. It was really for something so much bigger. That felt really rewarding.
Yeah. And I think Eric and I can both agree with working with some large brands in the past, is it does come down to the people, and that shines through too on the marketing side of things. So if you have this authentic group of people that's working for the brand, it shines through in your social media and really allows people to connect with your brand in an authentic, really great way. So I agree. I think having good, solid people underneath your brand to, exude that throughout your different campaigns that you're building is really important. And so on the brand side too, do you have any recommendations or advice for people looking to build influencer campaigns? Would you recommend long-term campaigns with a specific influencer, or does it really depend on what you're looking to do and your objective?
There's so many different objectives, right? Like what we were talking about before. Is it an awareness play? Is it a conversion play? What are you looking for as an engagement? Is it followers? Are you trying to get more followers to the brand? Is it, there's so many different things. Are you entering a new market? Like, you trying to bring a US brand into Asia? Like, it could be so many different objectives. So I think it's there's not a one size fits all. And I think the biggest thing, like if we're talking about on a global scale, like one thing that, and especially someone I've lived in London, I've lived in Australia, lived in the US, just say you've got a US brand, doesn't mean that necessarily translates in the Middle East or in Japan or in Southeast Asia or in Europe or EMEA. You want to have a global strategy, but you want to also allow a little bit of flexibility for local nuances, right? It's so important. I remember once there was a French skincare brand I worked for years and years and years ago. I won't say the name, but it was in Australia, and it was a beautiful brand, very premium. And part of their training was you couldn't eat white rice, but they were entering China and Japan, and I'm like, that's not going to work. You can't, like, that's just not, you can't seriously think a whole country who loves this brand is now got to adopt this philosophy of you can't have white rice in your diet. I mean, and so it's just like, you want to make sure that a brand has the same pillars and values, and that so around the world you do get that same experience, but you do want to be flexible, because often I used to feel terrible for these local markets who've got these small budgets. They're trying to execute on a global strategy where they don't have the same dollars, marketing dollars behind them. And they're meant to kind of create something that makes absolutely no sense. So, I mean, even just you look at the different seasonality things. I remember being in Australia, and I was communications manager of Estée Lauder. So this is 10, 15 years ago. And, we'd get these beautiful Christmas campaigns and holiday campaigns, but they're always shot in the snow. And I'm like, well, it's 108 degrees here in Sydney. Like, that just doesn't translate. So, that's where I say having a little bit of flexibility and listening to your brand custodians and your marketing experts around the world, or, locally, wherever it might be. Like, listen to them. Some of the best marketing initiatives have come out of, I look at someone like Jen Atkin, right? She was one of the pioneers of asking her audience, hey guys, what do you think of whey? What do you think of this product? Would you rather have a hair product, or would you rather a body product? she was brilliant in how she built that business, and I have so much respect for her as a businesswoman and a person. And she was smart. She went straight to social media. She had a very engaged, audience set who, loved everything she did, and she brought them in with her on the ride, and that was just genius. So, I think the days of it's, this, iron building in New York and everyone's just sitting around making decisions. No, you want to ask different markets, different age groups. I mean, gosh, I call my 13-year-old niece all the time. I'm like, okay, what do you think of this person? Love her. I'm like, okay, great. I get the Ella approval. Like, so, I shouldn't say she's 13. I think she's 16. So, but, it's so important. I'm almost 45. I don't know what's cool, but she does. So, being open to other people's feedback. And it's not that old way of, the older you get, the more, people should listen to you. Yes, I'm all about being respectful to everyone and respect your elders, but you can learn so much from every part of life and every consumer and every demographic. It's so important that you don't cut off a whole, part of your business that you might not have even realized was there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny that you mentioned Jen Atkin. I worked for a hair care brand for a while, and we looked to her all the time and what she was doing with Way. Okay. And my team and I would send each other all of the influencer packages. They're so good at that. We would just always send those to each other as inspiration. So yeah, definitely inspired by what she does, and she still does that with Way. Right. She still does customer testing and things like that.
And she's so incredibly just generous with her time. And, she's so gracious, and, that is how business should be done. Like, I mean, that being said, her to-do list, and, I'm sure she's so crazy busy, and, you want to make sure you balance in family time, and, she's got a beautiful husband and baby and doggies and things. But, but I think she got it. She really got it, and she nailed it. And I'm just so happy for her success she's going to continue to have. Because she really understood the consumer, and she really respected the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I learned a lot from her too in her book, actually, that she released. I think it was last year.
Blowing my way to the top, the best.
Yeah, hilarious. Also love that title.
I sent her a photo because I was reading it. My husband took a photo of me. I'm on a flight. And I remember going, why is everyone looking at me funny? But the title, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember I sent it to her, and she's like, oh my God, Alice. It's hilarious. It's not exactly the book you want to read on a plane, but
yeah, maybe not at a coffee shop either.
Right. Not in first class.
Yeah. So let's say, we asked this a little bit, but let's say that you have a CPG brand and you want to make an awareness play. It's a US based brand, and you're looking for awareness within the US, and you want to work with influencers, but you're not sure where to start with that. So what do you recommend for someone like that? I know that we have listeners that are going to be thinking about these things in their brain. And so I'm wondering about your advice on clients of your caliber. Kind of where would you start with that? Would you recommend doing a longer campaign over the course of, a year or several months? Or would you recommend just boom, boom, boom with smaller influencers?
It's such a, like, how long is a piece of string? It's so dependent on what the brand, the product, the service, all of that is. I mean, I guess where I would start, I'm just thinking in my head, this is a CPG, but this could be anything, right? CPG brand, what's their tone of voice? Okay. And if I wanted to partner with an influencer, what kind of influencer would have that similar tone of voice? Would they be comedic? Would they be funny? Would they be, I would look at that, and then how, it's almost like if that brand was a person, who would that be? Then I'd start to like brain map all that out. Okay, would it be, I won't even say any names, but would it be this person because they're voluptuous? Think about the brand, almost if you could personify that brand, who would that ideal person be? Okay, maybe you're not going to get that person for whatever reason, but start to brain map that out. And then in terms of whether it should be a long-term or short-term strategy, if you're going into working with influencers for a first time, you want to do a test and learn. You don't have to throw all your marketing dollars, at the first person that comes along. Do a test and learn, keep building, measure the ROI, look at the analytics, see the conversion, track everything. Data is your best it's going to be your best guide to the future. That's really going to determine where you should keep leaning into. If you can do brand health deep dives and start to kind of build out roadmaps of what your consumer is saying, and you'll see it in Google Analytics and all of those kind of, there's so many platforms that can provide you with that feedback, and you'll start to see a story come to life. And then that's where you can start to interplay influencers or celebrities or, what kind of talent you want. But then how do you continue that conversation? How do you add them to the element and then make the story explode or go viral or bring more awareness or bring more sales or whatever the objective is? But I'd really look at kind of brand propositions, brand values, the brand pillars, the tone of voice, all of those things, and then go, okay, if I then had to take this brand and match it to someone, who would that ideal person be? And then work backwards from that.
That is such good advice. I think a lot of brands miss that because they're just looking for the next campaign and they're just so busy that they don't take the time to understand who they are and their brand positioning.
And I think a lot of people just throw things at a wall and think, okay, this stick, this didn't. But, you really want to be considered. And, I've always thought, oh my gosh, there's a lot of marketing dollars out there and this is not my money. So, I want to be respectful to the people that work before me to build this brand so they have these marketing dollars. So, just you don't have to, it doesn't have to all be done overnight. Like you can build it up and a lot of the time you want to do like a multi-tier, influencer outreach strategy where you work with macros, you work with mid-tiers, you work with micros, because each kind of layer of the funnel has a different value that it brings, right? You might do seeding and these micros might not even get paid, but guess what? Word of mouth from a micro influencer can be game changer. So many brands, big brands were built on having really robust micro influencer strategies that they didn't put a lot of dollars into, but they did a lot of seeding, a lot of clever seeding. And then as the dollars started coming in, they started getting mid-tiers in, started getting macros. And then it becomes this, 360 campaign. And then you just see this brand everywhere and everyone's like, I got to get this brand. What is this brand? So yeah.
Yeah, very, very good advice. Thank you for that. So shifting gears just a little bit, if you could give one piece of advice to anyone looking to start their PR, publicity, talent management career, what would it be? And are there any resources that you recommend?
So I guess I would say is just get involved. When I feel ancient, but like when I was in high school, I was always doing work experience. In my summer holidays, I'd go to a radio station or I'd go, learn from this person or work, it didn't matter. It was unpaid. I felt I was like 15 and I'd put on my mum's big shoulder pads and the suit because I saw that in the movies. That's what, I'd wear my little heels and I thought I was so fabulous. And I'd go to, I'd bring my lunch and honestly, I just loved it. And I was just so grateful to be there and having these people. I didn't care if I was doing just their faxes when there was fax machines, that didn't matter. I just got involved. I networked because guess what? I love people. It wasn't hard for me. Sometimes I'd be 3 different events a night. I loved it. If I could fit in more, I would. I just had to get up to bed. But, I think meeting people, working with people, helping people. I'm such a big advocate in free mentorship and it's our duty to help the next generations. And things have changed, like life, back in the day, it was important to be best friends with the editor of Vogue. Those days have changed, right? Traditional media has changed, but whatever it is, like, I don't know, give your time. I think we're so lucky in our careers. We've come as far as we've come, so it's very important to be able to give back as much as possible. I'm constantly mentoring, and my husband's like, who are you talking to now? And I'm like, it's just some sweet kid who found me on Instagram. I don't know. I'm just giving my 2 cents and they can take it or leave it. But if they feel it's valuable to them, then that's my duty to give them that. So I say get involved, do it. Like I said, I came from a town of 5,000 people with, there was like 2 traffic lights. There was nothing. I was a farm girl. And I certainly didn't ever think I'd be living in New York or traveling the world and doing that. And you just keep going and being the best that you can be. And then you get to the next job and you be the best at that. And then the best at that. And that's it, really. Get involved. Enjoy it. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah, it's such simple advice, but it's so true, right?
Right.
It's so impactful. And so for me, I had a question too about kind of the PR industry as a whole. So I got my degree in PR, and I know ever since even I graduated, the industry has changed so much. The way that people do
Right.
things and approach situations has evolved even just within a few years. Do you have any recommendations for staying on top of industry trends, or, what's happening and shifting within the industry?
I mean, I guess you could talk about something like social media and like the influx of TikTok is a new trend, I guess. Or you could talk about trends where it's actual 3, 5, 10-year forecasting for product development and things. I mean, there's a lot of different companies out there that actually specialize in what the next big thing will be, or where we, like the Airbnb movement, or everything's going to be personalized. Everyone wants bespoke, personalized customization. There's companies that specialize in that, and certainly on a corporate level, we would engage those companies very often to think about future trends, especially when it came to innovation, product development, all of that kind of thing. In the world of PR, I mean, I think honestly, the best place you can look at is the generation behind you. The ones that are coming through. They're going to be the ones telling you what they want to see, how they want to be fed their consumerism, where they want to shop, how they want to digest news, how they interact with their peers. You only have to look at the youth to really see where the future's going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's been a theme throughout, I don't even know, the past couple of seasons of this podcast, is just learning from Gen Z, and then also the one coming up behind them.
Right.
They're leaning more into brands that, they resonate with their empathy and their, connection with people, and not just, the product you see in the store that's the most popular. It's about who you are as a brand, and speaking to those younger generations, and then learning from them,
Right.
and adjusting.
Dialogue now, like back in the day, an ad would come out of being Vogue's beautiful, and it's literally a one-way communication from the brand. This is how we want you to perceive the brand, and this is the image it is, and this is the feeling you get from it, and this is the level of prestige or the mass or whatever it is. And that's how it would be now, especially with social media. It is a two-way dialogue, and if you've got a consumer who's not happy with you, trust me, you want to do something about that, or you want to at least be aware of it, because that should really, dictate a lot of your decision making for the future. Because it's not how it used to be. It's very much a dialogue. There are consumers, and especially like you were saying, Gen Z, it's authenticity. People can see through it now. I'm so incredibly excited about the youth of today and the changes that they're going to make. I'm talking on an environmental level, on so many levels, and we won't get political, but I mean, thank God they're coming, because our generation, or I shouldn't say you're so much younger and more beautiful, but like there's so many mistakes that were made, and yes, we're going through a time of a lot of healing and change and learning, but I think it's needed, right? So I'm optimistic for the future, and I think the youth really, they've got a lot of power in their hands, and I think it's great. I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think of our last episode that we had with Zaria of Duolingo. I don't know if you've seen like the Duolingo TikToks and how amazing and just absurd they really are. And she was talking about how authenticity is shifting into the world of like absurdity on social media, and just, like laughing with a brand, like having that interaction that you really didn't get before when it was just the magazine spread.
Right. It's personifying the brand. So, and that's why I say like bringing in humor is such a great way, because what do you do when you sit down with your girlfriends on a Friday, have a glass of wine, have a laugh, you connect. It's an emotional connection. I remember one of my favorite quotes is, the shortest distance between two people is through a story. And that was something I used to use a lot when I was doing my conferences, and obviously being a publicist, and back in the day, people might not remember what you said, but it's how you made them feel. Or they might remember, oh, that was what she had, this great story. There's something that you can get. So if a brand can be remembered in a way, and if there's an emotional aspect you can bring to it, that's marketing 101. Like, you want to have that emotional stickiness. So, the consumer will continue to come back to that brand. And, even if they're like, oh, look, there's another brand just as good, but you know what? That brand gets me. I get it. I love it. We've got each other. Like, That's what you want. It's about connection.
Definitely, definitely. And we know some of our listeners that are working in PR for brands actually. So if someone is looking to get their brand into an online publication or magazine, I'm sure you have some experience with that being in communications. What are the steps that you would recommend to take to get there if they've not started yet?
So, I mean, obviously you want to build up your arsenal of assets. So you want to have I mean, again, I don't know what brand we're talking about. You want to have product shots, you want to have press releases done, you want to have fact sheets done, you want to have talking points, you want to have anything that a journalist or, someone who is potentially going to write about the brand might need. You want to have all that done. Headshots, maybe it's a founder bio, maybe they want to do interviews with the founder of the brand, whatever it might be. Having all of that, obviously, the easy thing to do is engage a great PR agency and because they are the ones that are already set up with all the contacts and things. But also you want to make sure that whatever you develop you want to make sure that it's in alignment with everything that you're putting out to the consumer. So your social media, your Instagram handle, your LinkedIn page, all of the brand elements, the packaging. I mean, everything has to coexist in a universe that makes sense. Because again, like I said, yes, you want global strategy, but local relevance. You still need to have this kind of trust, right? You need to have those brand pillars, the brand values, everything that makes that brand unique and different and has a special point of difference. But you want all those elements set up so that when the journalist or whoever it is about to write, they've got everything at their fingertips. They almost don't even need to call you because they're like, great, I've got the story. Obviously, you want angles, you want to have innovation, you want to bring, tidbits, you want newsworthiness. You can't just be like, oh, I've got this brand, write about it. No, what's interesting? What makes it interesting? Why did you develop this brand? What's coming down the track? Have you got something that's new and innovative and revolutionary for the industry? What are all those key angles? And then putting together a PR strategy of, and then how to then capitalize on that, right? Obviously, UGC content, leveraging all of the fans that are out there using the brand already, like repurposing those assets on your own channel if you can. You've already got free content there, doing shoots, product shots. I think just having, you want to have a good marketing strategy ready to go before you launch, if just so you're prepared. You never want to be kind of chasing your feet.
That's awesome. And so let's just say there's a brand that's on the smaller side, they're not necessarily nationally known. How do you recommend that they make that first introduction to reporters or to news publications? Like, what does that outreach look like for those small brands that you'd recommend?
I mean, I think number one, I guess, is seeding, right? A great creative mailer. And obviously everyone's got different budgets and things like that, but some type of seeding that's going to make that person notice it, right? These editors and journalists and influencers and celebrities and talent, I mean, 100 boxes a day that turn up. So what's going to make it different? So that's why creative mailers, I mean, and look, there's a little bit of backlash with creative mailers as well. The environmental impact is terrible. So if you can figure out how to bring sustainability into your messaging, if that's obviously important to the brand, hopefully it is. But, you want to make sure everything you do is still within the brand elements and touch points that make that brand that brand. But I mean, seeding is honestly probably the easiest thing to do. When I say it's easy, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's probably the simplest step. You want people to fall in love with the product, get them the product. Okay. Obviously we're in the days of COVID, but events are coming back. Can you do an event? Can you hold an influencer event in LA or New York or in Chicago or wherever it might be, and bring key opinion leaders and bring them in and have them interact and just start to kind of build that awareness, and people start seeing it. They're like, oh, hang on, there's that brand again. As it gets bigger, do you then want to sign a face to it to really give it that huge push? Like, Erica's drink, the Shay and Onda drink, like what's, it's a strategy, and the brand continues to evolve, and as it grows, you start putting more marketing dollars into it and repurposing. But yeah, you want to, I think seeding is probably the simplest step to, at the end of the day, you can't make someone fall in love with the brand if they haven't even seen it or touched it or tried it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are unfortunately coming to the close of the interview, which is so sad, but this is one of our favorite questions we love to ask our guests on the podcast. And it's a little bit of a loaded question, but
Okay.
where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Will you be representing the same talent? Will you be hiring and branching out? What are you the most looking forward to in the future of your career?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I mean, I feel like my life is every year it changes. Um, I all I can say is I hand on heart love what I do. I love my girls. I honestly can't imagine a day where I'm not in touch with them every day because I just, but maybe things happen and then that's okay. Maybe it isn't like that, but certainly I never set out to have an IMG or a CAA. That's just not my thing. I'm very much about, full service 360 like service. I do everything. But yes, I'm probably going to have to bring on, certainly an assistant for me. Because I like to work hard, but I do enjoy having my vacations here and there, and going back to Australia and things. But yeah, I don't know. Honestly, sometimes I think that can be a limiting question because it could be so much bigger than I imagine. I'm such a person that says yes to everything. So I'm like, let's just see what happens. I'm so excited about some of the things that are in the works for some of my talent and my girls. I'm so proud of them. And a lot of them have come through huge, personal things, and I'm just how they handle things. I just could not be prouder, and I love them so much. So I don't know. I think we'll just keep building and creating great things, and let's see. Sky's the limit. I think nothing's, there's no end to it. Who knows? But I love what I do, and I'm just extremely grateful I get to do it every day.
We are so excited to follow along with the rest of your journey, Alice, which actually brings me to my last and final question. Where can people follow you online and keep up with all of your adventures in life and career?
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, I mean, obviously I'm on Instagram. It's just my name, Alice Hampton. I have obviously, a website for my company, acpmanagement.com. But yeah, really that's it. I mean, it's not that exciting. It's my husband, my dog, myself, and some of my girls. But yeah, just usually Instagram. A lot of people, I get a ton of messages on DMs and even brands reaching out about deals for my girls and things like that, and then of course email, and that's on my website. So yes, anyone can reach out, and please say that Cassie and Erica sent you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Alice. We so much loved having you on the podcast, and we're excited for everyone to hear all of the insight and amazing stories that you shared with us today.
Oh, it's such an honor, and congratulations to you both. What a great podcast you've got, and really excited to see and hear all the other people that you have on the show after. It's really great. I love it.
So I don't know about you, but I walked away from that interview with a full page of notes. How refreshing to hear from someone who adores what they do and who they impact. Thank you so much to Alice for joining us. It was such a privilege to speak with you, and we hope to cross paths again someday. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know by leaving a review and reaching out to us on social media. As always, follow along on Instagram @Marketing Happy Hour. That's @Marketing Happy HR.